Welcome to the Light Your Heart with Hope podcast. I'm Erin, and first of all, I just want to thank everyone who has listened to season 1 of our podcast. It has been so encouraging for us to hear how these stories have impacted your lives and given you hope in the midst of your own circumstances. If you're listening to this and you have yet to listen to season 1, I hope that this episode will give you a glimpse about what we talk about and that you will go back and listen to these amazing stories. Today's episode is going to be a short recap of season 1. I'm going to talk about 7 takeaways that I personally have gained from listening to these messages. But before I begin, I just want to thank our guests, Becky, Lena, Amy, Carlita, Sheila, and Kristen and Kyle Webb, for being willing and courageous enough to share their stories with everyone. Oh, and I also want to thank my mom because hers was the first episode, which was absolutely amazing. And I want to thank her because she has joined me every Friday to share immeasurably more mini messages. So, the first takeaway I want to share with you actually comes from my mom's first episode. And it was how joy and pain can collide in the most beautiful way, how they can walk hand in hand regardless of our circumstances. In God's presence is fullness of joy. So that means that whatever we're walking through, we can find joy in the midst of it because of who God is and because of what He's doing in our story. And ultimately, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to go through circumstances that are painful and just know that in the midst of not being okay, God meets you right where you are. The second takeaway is to be present, to see God's presence in every single moment, whether that's in the hard moments or the moments where we're filled with joy and gratitude. He's there. He's present no matter what you are walking through. And I hope that you are encouraged to take every single day, one moment at a time, one prayer at a time, all in God's time. Stay in the day. Be obedient to what God has called you to today. The third takeaway is the importance of community. We need each other. Allowing people to help you and come alongside you in the midst of what you're walking through is essential. I've seen this in my own life in seasons where I have needed other people to walk with me through my pain. And we don't have to feel like we can't share our stories with other people. In fact, I believe that sharing our stories encourages other people to share their stories too. And also, being surrounded by community shows you that you're not alone and that other people are walking through their own set of circumstances too. Allow people into your pain. Allow people into your story. The fourth takeaway is finding hope and strength in the character of God. He never changes. He is always good, and He is always working all things together for our good and for His glory. How we feel in any given moment doesn't change who God is. No matter how hopeless our circumstances are or how heartbroken we may feel, God is still good. And even if your circumstances don't seem good, He still is. And this leads me to my fifth takeaway. Trust in the faithfulness of God. Regardless of how small or how great you feel like your faith is, in the podcast, we talk about having faith the size of a mustard seed. Scripture tells us that if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. There is power in our faith, no matter how great or how small. Another takeaway regarding faithfulness is that you can trust in the faith of others when your faith feels like it's faltering. In my own life, I've needed other people, not only to have the community of people surrounding me and praying for me, but I needed to lean on other people's faith because there were so many moments where I questioned my faith and that I didn't know where to turn because I felt so faithless. when I doubted God and questioned him. In those moments, he was always faithful. And I believe that he brought people into my life so that I could lean on their faith in those moments. And I believe that God will bring those people into your life too. Allow yourself to be vulnerable and allow yourself to lean on other people's faith. The sixth takeaway is surrendering the unknown to the God that knows. God knows every single part of your story. He planned in advance. And like we said before, he is using it for good. And there's so much unknown in our life, especially in the world we live in today. Everything seems unknown. The future, our present circumstances, so much unknown. And yet there is somewhere we can run with all of our questions, with all of the unknowns. When we aren't certain about what's next, we can rely on the certainty of God. And lastly, number 7, God is able to do immeasurably more than all we can ask or imagine. That is a scripture in Ephesians 3:20 that I absolutely love. He has the power to do immeasurably more in whatever it is that you're going through. Another version of this scripture says that he can do exceedingly abundantly above all you could ever ask or imagine. No matter what you are walking through, even if it may seem like, God, how can this situation be good? How are you using this? You can trust in who he says he is. You can trust in what scripture says, that he is able to do immeasurably more. And all of the stories in season 1 of this podcast point to a God who is immeasurably more. I hope that you will go back and listen to these episodes, or that you will listen to them for the first time. I hope and pray that you are encouraged by them and that they encourage you to share your own story, because your story is powerful. It has meaning. God is using it, and he can use it to impact other people's lives too. I also would encourage you to listen to the Immeasurably More mini messages that we share every Friday, because those expand on what we talk about on Monday. And I really believe that God is doing an immeasurably more work throughout all of these stories and throughout everything that we share. And lastly, we are entering into season 2 starting next week. But stay tuned for Friday, where I will be sharing a sneak peek, a little season 2 preview for you about what you can expect in this next season. Thank you again for being here. I am so thankful for you. And I believe that if we share our stories of what God has done, he can do immeasurably more than all we can ask or imagine. And together, we can make a difference today for someone who is fighting for their tomorrow.